I was just telling Morgan before I hit record, I was like, I listened to you on His and Hers. I didn't know who you were before that, but I loved it. I sent it to like 5 people five of my clients, because I was like, people need to hear you talk about like the depths of it, but also like the abundance of it. And like, I love the fact that you use something like very similar to what I always say is like finding a way to yes. And I just loved your grittiness. So thanks for saying yes to this.
Oh gosh, I'm so flattered. Thank you.
Oh my
Happy
gosh.
to be here.
Well, I'm so excited. Like, it's wonderful. Like, obviously, your career has been amazing and awesome, and all of the highs and all of the lows. And now you're starting your new company, which I will be a massive fan of because I drink sparkling water all day, every day. And now you're going to add protein to it. So I'm here for it. We'll talk all about that. But I'd love to kind of start in the beginning of your journey. You are the co founder, co CEO of Primal Kitchen. Like, how in the heck did all that? I know that most people don't know how all this happened, but I would love to kind of go back to the beginning of your journey.
Sure. Do you want me to start at the Primal Kitchen or start at like the college? Where do you want me to
Oh,
start?
the college is the best part, girl. Because
Okay.
like, I think that that's the best part. You're like, I'm gonna just travel the whole fucking world and figure out who I am, and I come
Yeah.
back and all of the
Yeah.
things."
Yeah, no, I graduated college with an accounting degree. I went in as a psych major, but it was like too much science for me. And I was like, oh, that sounds really hard. Math was always easy. So got an accounting degree, which is ironic. Everyone who meets me is like, an accounting degree? Like, really? But I did that. Graduated. I got 2 job offers. One as a recruiter, one as an accountant on the same day. It's like October of 2000. What year did I graduate? Oh six, maybe oh six. And I took the recruiting job because it came with a BlackBerry, like, this is where we were at in life, and then I did it for 2 days, and I was like, "Oh god, like, I did not make the right decision here, like, I hate this, what should I do?" So I called the accounting firm back, and I was like, "Hey, did you guys, like, place the staff accountant role?" They're like, "No, you can still have the job, no problem." So I did this accounting job for, like, 9 months, long enough to realize, like, I was never gonna be an accountant long term. Quit to go waitress at my aunt and uncle's, like, dirty dancing type resort called Coons Franklin Lodge in northern Wisconsin, and then I left to South America. I convinced one of my best friends from growing up, who actually was my first hire at Primal Kitchen, I convinced Anna to move to South America with me, which was supposed to be like a 6-month trip, but we met these girls from Ireland, and my 6 months turned into like 2.5 years. That culminated with me getting my yoga certification in Hawaii, like having a whole experience, if you will. So I was living off of like 8 to 10 grand a year, but making $12,000 a year doing research for this author. And then, yeah, I just kept rocking and rolling on the traveling front. Came back, got
I
a job.
wanted to stop you there right
Yeah.
there for a second, because I had a completely different journey, but kind of like the same in the fact that like I grew up in Canada, originally from Canada, and, like, we have a thing in Canada and most places in the world beside the United States where you take
Gap
time
year?
off. Yeah, gap year, and
It's absurdly popular in England. Yeah.
totally, and I took 3, so I actually, like, graduated high school, and then I
Love
took
it.
3 years. Yeah, it was super good. I went to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, all of the things. Came back and just started to work because, like, working has always been what I'm good at. Like, I knew I always wanted to make money, and I knew I was, like, like, I could outwork anyone. So I just started working, and then that's how kind of, like, my golf career happened because I went to college and all of those things. But would you now you have kids, would you
Yeah.
encourage your kids to take that gap year? I feel like it's so important.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
I
no
went to
one knows
camp
what they're
for 8
doing.
weeks. Yeah, no, you don't know what you're doing. You're, like, expected to make a decision about what you wanna do for the rest of your life when you're 18. You have no idea, and, like, some of these things just can't be, like, thought through. Like, I've experienced this recently in my life. Like, there was a big decision my husband and I had to make about where to live, and we've been talking about it for a year. We, like, bought this lot. We're like, "Should we build or stay where we are?" A year, and finally, like, a few months ago, my therapist was like, "Okay, just stop talking about it," and we're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just no more." We're like, "Just pay the mortgage on this lot and don't talk about it." He's like, "Yes." Like, you have exhausted thinking through it. Sometimes you have to just go do or, like, wait for the universe to deliver an answer, and so that then the answer came, and it's all been good, but, like, that is definitely, like, it's just there's no, like, life work experience that could ever replace, like, being a nomadic traveler. Like, there's just you should do it. You should do it when you're young. You should do it when you're old. You should always do it.
Yeah.
But
I love the
Yes.
fact that you're basically saying, like, my whole formula for life, everything I talk about on this podcast is decision, faith, and action. And like, I think the action part is like the part that a lot of people don't like really understand fully. And like, I loved one of the reasons why I love the podcast that I heard you on was like, you just talked about like massive action, just take action, like do things. Like, I feel like that's how you breed confidence. That's how you like actually get clear on decisions. Like, you can't just think about it. You got to do shit. Like, you got to take action.
Yeah, action's kinda like the antidote to, like, anxiety too, right? Like, if you're nervous about something or it's like, okay, I don't know, you got a big decision, go talk to people, go tour something, go do whatever, but you can't, like, think your way through it. You kinda gotta, like, feel it out. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, for sure. So you're down in, like, Central America or South America, and then you take the you go to Hawaii, do the yoga training, you come back, and then what?
I have a meltdown, okay? I come back, I'm, like, 25, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like, I don't belong really." I bought the domain surfyogaecuador.com, I learned how to surf, I'm gonna, like, start a surf yoga camp in Ecuador, and then I'm like, "I don't really belong there, but I don't really belong at home." I've been living off, like, nothing, my friends are buying, like, $200 jeans at Anthropologie, and I am, like, beside myself, right? Like, I'm like, "I don't all my friends have jobs, I'm behind, I don't know what I wanna be when I grow up. Do I wanna be a sex therapist? Do I wanna start a sunscreen company?" These were all things I thought about. Do I wanna be a nurse? Do I wanna be a like, I just was all over the map, right? And I was really paralyzed. So I got my dad's therapist, who I still talk to today. He's like 86 and amazing. David Roadhouse. I filmed podcasts with him on the Primal Kitchen podcast if anyone wants to check those out. But started therapy and just kind of like felt my way through the rest of my 20s. Met a guy, moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, got a job from my uncle's friend at an advertising agency, managed the Frito-Lay account, great work experience in like a small agency fun setting. And then I surfed Lake Michigan in the winter in windswell with like icicles hanging from my hood, freezing, booties, the whole thing. And I got out of the water, and like a few weeks later, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, you don't have to live here. That was fun. We checked that off the, like, bucket list and, what's next? And then I had dated a guy in Mexico that was from California, and I, like, flew out to California to check out California and just, like, fell in love with Manhattan Beach in particular. Los Angeles, small, walkable, like, surf vibe, just, like, such a fun spot. I had kind of spent the last year in South America bopping around year and a half, like, from surf towns. I was, like, in Montanita, Ecuador, in Mancor, Peru, in I was in Costa Rica, in Malpais, I lived in Sayulita in Mexico, so anyone who's a surfer would recognize some of these places, and I spent, like, 6 months in each of those places. So Manhattan Beach felt like, "Oh my god, I can, like, live this surf town vibe, but I get to be, like, in a place where there's, like, I'm close to home, and I'm also, like, can do work, and this is great." So I just fell totally in love with Manhattan Beach. I moved 2.5 months later. I went to quit my job with no job lined up, and my boss at the time was like, "Well, do you have another job?" I said, "No." He's like, "Well, great, just stay on remote." And this is I'm 28, I'm 40, so this is 12 years ago. Like, there wasn't a lot of remote work at this point in time. Like, it definitely wasn't like it is now. But I did that, and then I had had my own kinda, like, health and wellness revelation when I was in South America. This is, like, so long-winded. Do you want me to stop or
No, girl, I love it. No, I think it's so
okay.
good because I just want everyone, like, please, anyone who knows a person like under the age of 30 who it feels like they're behind or they haven't like, checked all the boxes or they're never gonna figure it out. Please, God, send this to them because there's so many people, even like under 40, because there's so many people who just
100,
like
baby,
have,
180.
yeah, under,
Guess what? You figure it out, and then you have to figure it out again. So, like, there is no, like, arrival. Like, I'm figuring it out again. I'll never forget after we sold Primal Kitchen to Kraft Heinz, my boss at the time was like he was like, newsflash, like, no one knows what they're doing." And I was like, "Really? It's not just me? Like, I feel like such a fish out of water as this entrepreneur operating in corporate America." And he was like, "No, like, everybody's faking it till they make it." He had been at Heinz for 17 years. It was such a breath of fresh air to, like, enter into a corporate organization with kinda like a mentor like that. It was very cool. But anyway, so yeah, I'm back. Let's see, I moved to LA. Then eventually I applied. I went on LinkedIn. I found this company I loved, KeVita. I would buy them. I'd go grocery shopping at Whole Foods, because I'm in Southern California and I'm really living this, like, sticks and berries health and wellness lifestyle. And I I'd always grab a KeVita while I was shopping, and I would like that'd be kind of my treat. Like I'd drink this KeVita while I was doing my grocery shopping. Then I'm like, I wonder if they're hiring. So I went on LinkedIn. I like messaged their VP of sales, right? And I'm like, are you guys hiring in marketing? Because I'd been in an advertising agency. He's like, yeah, actually, we're hiring a director of marketing. I'll introduce you. Blah blah blah. So I get thrust into this like, director of marketing app process that KeVita was doing, and they were sub 10 million in revenue. They have sold since to PepsiCo, but the time they were structuring their buyout with PepsiCo, I didn't know this when I took the job. But yeah, so I took the job that I had no business doing as a director of marketing for this brand KeVita. I learned a lot. I commuted to Oxnard, which is like a 90-minute drive from LA. I burnt myself out. I left maybe 9 months later and I had nothing lined up. So this is a common theme, a lot of like leaving with nothing lined up, which I'm totally a proponent of. Like sometimes I think you need to just create the space in order for things to happen. I was leaving with nothing lined up, but I had savings and I also like was renting out my bedroom on Airbnb and sleeping at my boyfriend's house. So I
You
was
could
scrappy.
figure it out. I love
I
that.
was
Like,
scrappy about it. Yeah, I wasn't irresponsible. I was living out
always
like
figure it out.
nothing and I made it work. Um but yeah, so and then I had met this guy, Mark Sisson, who was like considered kind of like maybe one of the founders of the paleo movement. I knew him, I followed him, I went out of my way to meet him at a work event. And he called randomly like 4 months later after I quit KeVita and was like, hey, I want to launch this food company. Do you think you can help? So I started consulting for him for $50 an hour. In our first meeting, he was like, yeah, I'm going to call it Primal Blueprint 'cause that's the name of his book. And I was like, that's a terrible name. You should call it like Primal Kitchen. He's like, oh, this meeting was worthwhile. And I was like, yes, you asshole. This meeting was worthwhile before I changed the name of your brand. No, I love Mark. He's like one of my best friends still to this day. But yeah. So, and then I built out the whole team, grew the company, and we sold it like 4 years later to Kraft Heinz for 200 million.
Boom, and just like that, folks. That's how easy and simple it is. No, but that's, like, honestly, I feel like nowadays with, like, the power of social media and, like, everyone just kinda jumping online and just being like, "It's this simple, and this is how it happens." But, like, one of the reasons why I really resonated with, like, what you were talking about on the podcast is because you talked about, like, the nitty-gritties of what it actually takes. Like, obviously, you know nothing about me, and all of the things, but, like, I am a huge proponent of being like, it's such bullshit that a lot of people just, like, tell you it's going to be easy or you can, make $1 million a year in your first year in business or whatever it is. But I think the proponent of or the main thing that you really said is you always found a way to yes. You worked harder than anyone else and you knew what your skills were. And you like one of the things that you talked about is like you really hired people who are better than you to actually show you what to do in the business. And I thought that that was like we need more people like you telling people like this because I feel like everyone else is pretending like it's super easy and like you get to the finish line and everyone forgets that it takes fucking 10, 15 years in order to sell
Yeah.
out for 200 million.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, like, I've always just been like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I'm not afraid to admit that. And with that comes some sort of like freedom and acceptance of like other people's opinions. Or, I mean, there's things I'm definitely like decisive and opinionated in the workplace. I don't think anyone would say like, oh, Morgan's just a wallflower. But like, certainly where I don't know, I'm happy to like hand that off to someone else. And
What
I'm
are
completely relearning. Yeah.
For sure. What do you think is your absolute best skill sets? Like, if you could come tell me, like, the 2 things that you have that you think have, like, made you as successful as you are, what would those be?
Building a team and listening to my intuition.
Listening to your intuition, I love that.
I think business, like, especially entrepreneurship is, like, much more an art than a science, and I've seen it a lot, like, we've gotten bigger and we have access to data and everyone's, like, slows down to, like, analyze the data and make this, like, PowerPoint decision that, like, makes a lot of sense, but then in all actuality, like, falls flat because it's, like, lacking just the human intuitive piece of, like, this isn't rocket science. We're selling food, we're not curing cancer here, like, these decisions like, some of these decisions are just, like, easy to make. So I made quick decisions a lot based off just, like, a lot of intuition-based decisions, I would say, and then I built, like, the best team ever.
So
So
how did you do that too? Because I think that that is so important. Like, one of the things that, I'm a big proponent of is building human connection. I think that your integrity and who you are, that stuff will stick with you forever, and I think the way that people feel about you is something that I think ultimately is one of the biggest keys to success. How do you think you did that so successfully?
well, I hired all my friends. I really did. I hired really motivated people with, like, a little bit of something to prove, which I think is great. Um, and they weren't like, they didn't have relevant experience. Like, Anna, my first hire, she was working for, the University of Minnesota in communications, and before that, she was in marketing for a big tractor company called Toro that sells, like, equipment to golf courses.
Girl, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
like,
I
"What's
know
the
Toro.
Toro?"
Yeah. And so on paper, like, would I have ever hired her if I like went to a recruiter and said, go find me employee number one? No, but she like hated her job. I know she's like a very like amazing human. We get along really well. We're very like direct, we whatever. And so I just hired her to do all the marketing stuff I didn't want to do. She was proficient in marketing. She was available. She was hungry and she was an amazing hire. And she's our VP of marketing today, still at Primal Kitchen. And she's teaching Kraft Heinz stuff all the time, like she's a marketing leader for sure. Um, and then like, I had a friend who was in sales, but she was selling beer. Like the beer industry is like very different than food. So someone maybe would have looked her over, but Kelly was like really motivated and hungry. And I knew her. We played soccer together in high school. And so that was like a no brainer. And then, a woman Amanda, who hired me at KeVita, like, she came over, but I think so it was I filled in a lot of that and the strategy, and then we were, like, a very this brand was built on, like, we had a super passionate group of people with a not me, but a very, like, visionary leader, Mark, my partner, Mark, right? So it was easy to recruit just people who cared, and so the rest of the team was filled in with that, and so it was kind of like a great balance.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think that, one of the things that I hear all the time working with like entrepreneurs and business people, I'm basically like a therapist to business owners is kind of how I brand myself oftentimes because I feel like it's just like so chaotic, like the business world. But one of the things I hear all the time is employees and hiring and creating an amazing culture and how do you actually do that? And I'd love to, obviously you built and scaled and grew and sold this amazing company. What do you think are some of the key aspects to building an amazing culture, to having a great team? Because I know people are listening and being like, but how did you find them? How do you build them?
I mean, there are some frogs you gotta kiss along the way. Like, I'm not saying every hire was amazing, but for the most part, we really didn't have much turnover at Primal. Like,
That's fucking
but we were running, like, it was moving so fast and it was fun. And all our problems were like champagne problems. And we have a lot of problems, but they were champagne problems. So it was kind of just like, I don't know, it kind of took on a life of its own, right? It was just this like thing we were all swept up in that was just a fun ride. I don't know. Like, how do I answer this?
But do you think you guys are just so built on the mission? Like you knew, and by the way, like I think that this is important too. And you kind of talked on this, like I was listening to a different podcast that you did. You talked on the fact that you guys knew when you set out that you were like building it to sell it, right? From the beginning, you knew that.
Mark and I knew, but we weren't talking about that with
Okay.
employees. We weren't like, "Come work for us. We're gonna sell this thing to Kraft Heinz in 2 years." Like, that creates a lot of just like, my whole team's still there, like, 6 years later, which is very rare, but, like, if I would've been upfront about that, I think people would've been like, "Oh, this is like they're gonna fire me." Like, that's what everyone just goes to this, like, change is scary, and then they would've been scared away for no reason. So, we weren't, like, forthcoming about that. Like, Mark and I had a vision, and we talked about it a little bit, but it wasn't like we talked about it every day. We were kinda just trying to stay alive, you know what I mean? Like, "Okay, how do we keep up with orders, and what retailer do we go to next, and how are we performing versus the competition?" It wasn't like that was, like, the main topic of conversation even between Mark and myself. Um, yeah.
So do you feel like your employees, like the people that work for you, were just so bought into the vision of like you guys creating the number one brand?
I think they were so bought into the mission of the business, which was like, let's get canola and seed oil out of food. And why do we need sugar in everything? So, like, those were the two big things. And if, food can be a little bit like religion in a sense. And at the time, there was a big like paleo versus vegan war going on. And we were like working for the paleo overlord, if you will, right? And, you had companies like Hampton Creek, that Just Egg company, they raised like hundreds of millions of dollars. And that guy was like very convincing, Josh Tetrick or whatever his name is. And a lot of people like glommed onto his mission and followed along, right or wrong, right? So, like, I think and then we had, like, Mark we ran the company out of the Malibu Chamber of Commerce before we went remote. We then got rid of that office and everyone went remote, which is, like, great for us. We ran the company remote. But, like, in the office, we all had treadmill desks. We had these, like, weird ergonomic pogo stick chairs. everyone was like walking around barefoot at Paleo FX and really like kind of like living the lifestyle. So just like the culture of the brand was very like we were all the target demographic. Like we all worked there and we were the target demographic. And there's something like really powerful about that. Like I see other brands struggle with like you got a bunch of like well-paid executives selling products to people on SNAP benefits and you wonder why it's not resonating, right? Like, I don't think they really understand the consumer. Like, and they can buy the studies and pay the consultants to tell them the consumer, but like, do you really know? Like, I don't know. Like, so I think I'm like a big proponent of like, I didn't hire anyone who was like a staunch, vegan and like opposed to the paleo diet. It wasn't like a requirement. It's just like the people we attracted because we were so early stage that a lot of people didn't know about us. If you knew about us, you were like in on it, right? You were reading the paleo blogs and following the paleo Instagram influencers, and you were kind of like in the whole universe. So it just was kind of like a subculture within a subculture.
Yeah, you guys were like a cult and people wanted to be a part of it. Like, if you were into that kind of vibe, it's like you
Yeah,
wanted to
it
be
was cool.
totally a part of it.
Totally. Yeah. Oh,
That's so cool. So fast forward, obviously, you guys grow this company, you create this massive exit, $200 million exit. You and Mark exit the company. And I'd love to kind of touch on like how you thought that was gonna go. Like, I've interviewed a few people who have exited companies. I actually, are you familiar with YPO?
yeah.
Okay, so my husband and I are YPO, and I've interviewed a few YPOers and who have talked about like this one guy in particular. He exited 3 times for 9 figures and he's like not yeah, he's like under 40. But he talks about like how the exits changed him each time. Was there something like magical that happened when you exited? Like what did that experience feel like? Because I think so many people are curious about that.
God, so I think it was, like, different for me than for Mark because I still had work to do, like, we had an earn out on the deal, and I had another Mark was kinda like, "I'm out," like, he made over $100 million. He was, like, retired. Mark's 70 now, at the time, so it was like he was, like, in a little bit of a different phase, so he would have a totally different answer than me. For me, I had my first baby November 6th, and we signed the deal November 28th.
What?
So, I took no maternity leave, like, I remember I think I got mastitis because Kraft came out to meet with us, like, December 15th, and I had a 6-week-old baby, and I hadn't been away and figured out the pumping thing, and I think I sat in the meeting too long and didn't go pump because I was insecure to get up from the meeting and, like, literally went home and had mastitis the next day from just, like, going back too early, if you will, and so I was working from home, but I just was so incredibly burnt out in the spring. I think, because I never took a break, I never took a breath. I think in the spring, I remember, like, so 4 months later or something, my phone would ring and I would be like, "Please stop calling me." Like, I don't have an answer for you. Like, this is my employees, right? Like, I was like, I can't deal with any more decisions or any more anything. And then, like, it chilled out. Like, we started to get into innovation and, like, my passion for the business came back and I kind of was able to, like, tap in, but I was exhausted. Like, I was exhausted.
I just don't think enough people talk about that because I think that a lot of people think that they're doing it wrong. And I'm not like saying that it's the best thing ever to be so overwhelmed and stressed out. But I also think too, and tell me if you feel like this is true, that there is those seasons that you have when you're growing something to this level, when you're building something. Like I think there is those moments that are just that fucking hard.
Yeah, there's definitely seasons for sure. And that lasted. And then, I got pregnant again and then I had maternity leave and then I coasted. There was times where I coasted and there was times when I was really stressed. I mean, not that maternity leave is coasting by any means, but just like checking out mentally from like work was really needed.
Would you have
Um,
done anything different during that first season, like, during those, like, 2 years? Is there something that you look back on now and go, "Oh, I if I would have done this, it would have probably been an easier transition," or anything?
I
See? Thank you for saying that because I do, I think most people, like, a lot of people after they exit, they're like, "Oh, I would have done this or would have done this." It's like,
No,
when
the only thing I
you're
would have done different is I remember the HR BP at Kraft Heinz was like, "You didn't take your full maternity leave with Riker," and I was like, "I didn't? Like, I didn't even know this?" And so maybe I would have taken the extra 3 or 4 weeks. That's it. Like, but I guess it takes, like, your 2nd or 3rd kid to really let go of, like, the work guilt, right? Like, you're kinda like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." I've
Yeah.
worked my ass off to be able to just, like, be home with my babies at this point in my life. But no, there's nothing I would have done really that different, I don't think.
Did anything change when you sold it?
Like, I mean, of course, a lot of things change, but, like, in what
I'm
respect?
I'm glad that you're saying that because, like, there's some people who would be like, "No, nothing changed," or some people would be like, "Fuck yes, everything changed." But, like, what actually changed? Because I think that it's helpful for
Everything is always changing.
okay.
That's that's the point of being alive. Like, nothing is stay the same. Sell your business, don't sell your business, shit's changing. Like, especially in this day and age. I feel like we've never seen so much change even in the CPG space as we have in the last like 5 years, right? Like, yeah. What changed? Everything changed. Like, my team is still there to this day, 6 years later. We still uphold our rigorous ingredient standards. Like, that's the same. But like, what changed? Like, let's see, we didn't have to answer to the bank for the financing, and that is a huge that was a huge sigh of relief. Mark had a personal guarantee on our $9 million line of credit that we were using to fund our business at 50 million in revenue. So for those listening that don't know what that means if we don't pay our like line off back to the bank, they could take Mark's house and his car and all of his possessions. It's still like a high risk, stressful type of personal guarantee on a loan that a lot of business owners take on to fund their business. So no more bank relationship. Um, I don't know. HR changed as far as just like the nitty gritty of the running of the business. Like that became a little bit more formalized, which was probably needed, but not as fun.
What
Yeah.
changed with you? Like, what changed in your life?
Mm.
How long after the sale did you have to stay on?
I mean, I had a 2-year earnout, so I didn't have to, I could have left if I wanted to, but I had a 5-year, 3-year, what I have a 3-year non-compete in all of food and beverage. So I was pretty motivated to stay, but I was pretty motivated to stay because we sold in year like 3.5. So I still had like work to do on the brand, right? Like there was still like some fun growth ahead and my whole team was still there. And, I stepped out in the spring and there's days now where I'm like, oh, I don't have anyone to talk to. Like, why isn't Amanda picking up the phone or Anna? I used to talk to these girls like 4 times a day. I still talk to Amanda 4 times a day. But like, I don't know, there's this like a little bit of a loneliness because you're so like whole like ethos was wrapped up in this brand. Like it was in my wedding speech, like
That's what I was
yeah.
telling you about that guy who has sold 3 nine-figure companies. He talked about, like, he was the exact opposite. The day that they sold, like, doors were locked, he was gone, and he said, like, that was and then COVID happened, and he lost his mom at the same time. Like, he said it was just, like, this explosion of everything that changed, and you would have thought that, like, the greatest thing that ever happened to him, like, ended up being the worst, but now it's obviously, however many years ago that was. But that's a huge I think most people just think that, like, everything's gonna be sunshine and rainbows once you sell out for $200 million or whatever it is, but I think that oftentimes it's not as, sunshine and rainbows as you think.
Yeah, I mean, here's my take on the whole thing. Like, I think there is just like a financial component of it that like everyone beats around the bush about just talking about, but like there was a big financial change for us, right? So we were able to like buy a house and that kind of stuff was really like sunshine and rainbowy for sure. We took my in-laws to Italy. Like I would never have been able to do that had we not done that. Um and all those things, like I remember seeing this psychology chart. This is crazy. It was like, okay, you get a new car, your happiness goes up like a little bit and then it comes back to baseline. You get a new house, your happiness goes a little higher than it did with the new car, but it comes back to baseline. You sell your company, your happiness goes a little higher maybe than the new house, but it comes back to baseline. You get a divorce, your happiness goes lower and then ends up higher. You lose your job, your happiness goes lower and ends up higher than baseline. So the only two things of this like one study that resulted in people being happier than they were divorce and losing your job, right?
Oh my god, that's
Before the
awful.
baseline. And it's kind of awful, but it's also kind of like reinforces like the new job, the new car, assuming your needs are met and you're not like scraping by and broke. Like if you're at a level of comfort, there's like money isn't going to make you any happier. But if you like are really, if you're at the point where you lose a job or get divorced, there's a lot of like turmoil there, probably a lot of like daily stress, and it's going to be like worse at the beginning and better in long run. I just thought that was fascinating. So, what changed for me? The stakes got higher. I just feel like I'm 40. I've had 3 kids, everything feels like decisions feel so much harder than they did when I was 28, right? Like, everything feels like, "Oh my god, where we live is I'm gonna, like, mess my kids up for the rest of their life, or where they go to school, I'm gonna fuck them up." Like, I just know I am, you know?
You still live in California?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Where are you?
But I'm in Arkansas. It's so funny because my brother-in-law a few years back, oh, probably 12, 15 years now. Gosh, it's been forever. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 42. But he was living in California, had this amazing job, and then like kind of life at he was about to get married and have kids. He's like, I gotta leave California. I don't want to fuck up my kids. So he came back to Arkansas.
I know, there is definitely something like, I grew up in the Midwest in Chicago, and my husband grew up in Michigan, so we're very, like, there's just that Midwest thing, like, it doesn't leave you, like,
Yeah. But
we,
don't
like
get me wrong, California is pretty amazing too. I mean,
yeah,
I grew up in Canada, I've lived in Arkansas. I moved down here in 2002 to go to college, and I think it's just the greatest, like, little hidden gem ever, but my husband and I are very blessed, we travel all the time, so it's almost like I can get pockets of it, but, like,
yeah,
roots are really in the South where it's, like, safe and warm and cheap, and I'm
totally.
just like, "Y'all are crazy, I'll live here."
I know. We think it all the time, but, like, we've left twice and we come back, so I don't know, like, I'm a lifestyle girl, I don't know, I play tennis outside, I go for beach walks with my girlfriends every week, I just feel like I couldn't leave, I don't know, it'd be too hard, too committed to the sunshine, I'm
Yeah.
committed.
No,
But
absolutely. There's something magical about
but yeah, we do worry, we're like, "Are we really raising kids here? Like, this is insane," but we live in, like, this weird pocket of LA that's very, like, family oriented, like, it's very walkable, it's like a laid back surf town with a lot of families and really good public schools, and it's safe, and I don't know. Yeah, it's, like, maybe a little bit of a hidden gem in LA, but anyway.
don't tell anyone where it is. No, people
No, I won't, but we dream like everyone in California is always like, "Alright, where are we going? Utah? Boise, Idaho?"
My girlfriend, she was a sports broadcaster forever, and she now is a realtor in Boise, and I'll tell you what, that market's fucking insane from all of you Californians.
I know.
She's
They're
crushed
all
it over there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Boston,
Austin, I was this in
Nashville.
Austin last week, so was I. It's
Yeah.
Austin's a good city too, but, like, again, it's pretty big. It's not the South. It's definitely different now. It's so much bigger. I think, honestly, good people can have success anywhere. I believe it's a mindset. Speaking of mindset, like, have you always had a very positive attitude? Have you always had, like, the always a way to yes type of mentality?
Yeah, I'm definitely, like, an optimist, probably, like, to a fault. I remember that same boss of mine at Kraft Heinz, like, our CFO, Rick, who I didn't mention, but he was, like, the integral 3rd member of the me, Mark, and Rick trifecta and just growing and selling the company, but Rick's, like, a seasoned he's retired, he's, like, been in every industry, sold companies in every industry, I mean, he's just, like, a badass guy, the nicest guy ever, and I remember Rick saying to me, like, um wait, sorry, I totally just lost my train of
That's
thought.
okay. It was about, positive optimism.
Oh, I remember it being in a meeting with Steve at Kraft Heinz, and Steve was he's asking us, "Oh, what's the outlook for the year?" And I'm like, "It's all sunshine and roses." And Rick's like very grounded in the reality, right? And Steve's like, "Well, as the president, Morgan, I would expect you to be like the optimistic, like salesperson, and as the COO, I would expect Rick to be like negative and realistic." So yeah, I definitely have just always had that. Yeah, for sure.
Have you
It's
had
like
to work on it? Like, you talk about therapists and, like, have you ever done, like, a bunch of mindset work, or is this just a natural yeah.
love
Is it
therapy. I was
okay,
just
that
I
yeah.
on a podcast with a woman from Germany who, like, I did a women's retreat with when I was 28. Like, I definitely went through, like, 10 to 12 years of, like, a lot of personal growth work. I'm kind of at, like, I'm in my romance novel phase. Like, I don't really read any self-help books anymore. I'm kinda like, "I'm good. I'm just gonna, like, read this smutty romance novel and enjoy myself." But for, like, 12 years, all I read was, like, self-help, fitness, health, autobiography books. Like, I didn't do anything for fun. I was, like, very just trying to make myself better, you know?
But I think that that's a
Um,
big part to success too, though. I think a lot of people don't even realize do you think that you would have been that successful and, like, had that mentality to have the like, that work ethic and the mentality to grow the company if you didn't put in that work?
Honestly, probably,
Oh,
but I might not have done it in as healthy of a way. Like, I don't think you can therapize, is that a word? Like, I don't think someone can, like, train you to be a hard worker. Like, you're a hard worker or you're not. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally, but the mentality behind it, the mindset behind it to actually enjoy the process. So, like, I think that that's like, I think you can 100% reprogram that, in my opinion.
Yeah, or, like, you work with someone while you're doing it so you can, like, stay grounded. Like, I think that's probably, like, a key.
Yeah.
I did that. I did a lot of that.
For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's like a freaking grind without it, in my opinion. But so now you're on the other side of it. You're in like this totally great place. You guys are living in California. You've got 3 kids, and now you're about to dive in to do another big journey. So like tell me about this. Are you just psycho or is this something that you're just like
I know. Am I just psycho? I don't know. I mean,
like
so
what
look,
put yourself through the grind
I
again?
know. I left 6 years ago. I loved growing Primal Kitchen, though, like,
Yeah.
we had fun. It wasn't like there were segments of the grind, I would say, like, selling the company in maybe, like, the first year, but otherwise, it never felt like a grind. It felt like a fun adventure. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like a work hard, play hard. I'm not like a rise and grind. Never have been.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will do my work in 3 hours and then I'm going surfing. Or like I went surfing and I'm starting my work day at 11. Like, and I own that. And I think I encourage that in my employees. Like I remember talking to people and they're like, all right, I'm like off to yoga. And I'm like, good for you. Like it's noon and you should go do yoga. Like, I don't know. I just think we're all adults here and like no one
Get
wants to
your
be like,
shit done. Yeah.
yeah,
I totally agree with
get
that.
your shit done. Like we have bigger problems than the fact that you're going to yoga at 2 in the afternoon. So I'm just like, I'm a work hard, play hard girl. Always have been. But remind me the question. Where were we going with this?
Going drink way.
Drink way. Oh yeah. So a year ago, I felt the need to put this new product in the marketplace, and I have spent the last year being like, "Oh my god, am I really gonna do this?" Like, I was like up journaling in the middle of the night the other night, and I'm like, "What is like my block here?" Because the universe just keeps pushing me. Like I have to do it. Okay. I think the product should exist. I love it. I have a great formulation. I have a great name. I'm ready to go. So I'm putting it out there. Okay. But I'm just, for those listening, like this has been the journey thus far to get me to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm all in. It was very like, I don't know, like, and I thought about it like, okay, am I afraid of failing? Is that what's like this resistance to me? Right. Like, and I was like, I don't really think that's it. I think I know how uncomfortable it's gonna be to launch something new, so I'm just a little bit like, "Am I really signing up to be this uncomfortable?" Like, I'm gonna sign up for this challenge, this discomfort, when I don't really have to, right? Like,
Well, that's, I think, the most important part to say, and I think it's like, because I do believe that sometimes, like, when something's just in you, you have to do it. Like, I this work, like, I've always talked about it. I've been very transparent and open about it. I don't have to work as hard as I do. I just have it, like, in my soul that I can't not do this. Like, it's so important to me to do the work that I do that I don't actually have to, like, I'm financially fine to be able to not do it, but there's just something in me that, like, I don't think I could exist without it, and so, like, I guess that's the thing about it is for you, like, most people would be like, "Why would you dive back into this? You're totally fine, you don't have to do it," but, like, I also think that greatness, like, people like yourself who've been able to do great things in this world, like, I don't know if you'd be, like, total like, would you be totally cool just being like, "Ah, I'm good, I did my thing?"
sometimes I think I would, but then I just, like, love the game too much, like, and it's
Yes.
too fun, But I could just, like, I could just, like, be a stay-at-home mom and just, like, chill. I just don't think I have it in me, though.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm kinda like I'm an opportunistic person to a fault. Like, I think my big problem is, like, it always has been. It's not just like a, you know look, I haven't, like, taken a dollar from my parents since I was maybe 17. I've paid for everything. My 2.5 years in South America, I paid for myself. I lived, like, off 8 grand a year. I was very whatever. I am not discounting my privilege in my upbringing or my parents paying for my college, like, all of that, right? Like, I fully accept that. But I just think I'm, like I don't know, like, I just yeah, feel like I just wanna put it out there, like, I have to just put it out there.
So how did it come about? Like, how did like, I mean, it makes so much sense. Like, I'm actually, if I'm being 100% honest, I'm actually fucking shocked it doesn't already
I
exist.
know, right? And that's when I think you're onto a good idea. But the universe just keeps delivering, like, these things. Yeah, so how did I is that what you're asking? How
Yeah, how did you think about it?
Well, I'm just like a 40-year-old mom of 3, so I'm listening to what everyone in the universe is telling us, which is like, "Hey, you need more protein. Have you heard it's about protein?" Like, everyone's just like I don't know if you saw that Big Time Adulting reel where she's like, "Take the amount of protein that would kill you, subtract 10 grams, and that's how much protein you need." Like, I kind of feel that. And then I started to dig into the research on it. I'm like a bit of a like, I've been in this health and wellness journey for like quite a while myself, and there's just like no more well-studied nutrient in existence than protein. It's like crazy. It's like reduce your appetite for the day, longevity, like anti-aging, osteoporosis, just like growth for children, like everything. It just seems very hard to argue that protein isn't good for you. And there's even more studies coming out. We used to think you could only like absorb or utilize like 20 grams in a meal. And like that's been blown out of the water. Like that was kind of like a big study last year that like we actually can have a lot more protein than that. And actually could be beneficial for other reasons. So like I'm all in on the protein thing. I don't think it's going anywhere. And I just don't want to mix a powder. Don't even really want to cook a meal. I don't have freaking time for that. Like, and I'm drinking all this sparkling water anyway, like, why not put clear whey protein in it? So,
Did you ever think in the beginning just to partner with a company that already does sparkling water?
no.
No. So you're like, "I'm just gonna do my own thing and create my own."
Like, what would that even look like? I don't know. I mean, I guess if I thought about it, but, like, yeah, like what? I mean, they could just go do it. They don't need me, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
guess so.
yeah.
So, tell us about it. Tell us when it comes to the market. Tell us what it's gonna be. Tell us all the things.
I'm hoping to have it in market in the next few days. The name's Whey, W-A-A.
In a few days? No
I'm
way.
sorry, few months,
I was like,
sorry.
"Oh my god, this is so
I'll
exciting."
totally send you some. I'm sorry, few
Oh my
months.
gosh, I'd love that. Do you know what I just wanna throw this out there too. I don't know if it was you, but probably well, I know what year it was. It was 2019. I was climbing Mount Did you sell before 2019? What year did you sell?
We sold January 3rd of 19.
Okay, maybe it wasn't you then, but in, 2019, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro for a children's charity, and I was just, like, putting it out online and had it some good traction. We raised, like, $1,000,000. There was, like, 12 of us or something like that, and Primal Kitchen reached out, and on Kilimanjaro, I still to this day, I forget what flavor it was, but they were orange. They were orange protein bars that you guys had.
Oh, yeah, our protein bars, yeah, we still had those then, yeah,
Yes.
with collagen in 'em, mhm.
Yes, they were so good, and I have so many photos of myself, like, on top of the mountain just being like,
We sent
"Thanks,
them to
guys."
you? It was like the
I
cashew
did.
protein. Okay.
Yeah, you just reached out and sent me, like I got, obviously, like, the sauces and the mayonnaise. I still, to this day, use the buffalo sauce and the special sauce and
Yeah,
obviously
that's
the
amazing.
mayo, but, those collagen bars, they were orange, they were square.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, the little peanut butter one, I know which ones you're talking
yes,
about.
they
Yes,
were
the peanut
so
yeah,
they're, like,
yeah.
kinda greasy, I don't know what was
Yeah,
yeah.
they were kind of the
They
fat was kind of falling out of the formulation there, yeah.
Yeah, but they were so good, and I have photos of myself on top of the mountain, but your team all I was gonna say was your team was so fantastic. I don't even know how the fuck they found me, but they're like, "Hey, can we send you some bars for your trip or whatever?" And yeah, your marketing team was
That's
phenomenal.
amazing. Yeah, they still are, and it's, like, still the same people. They're great.
It's so
So, I'm
cool.
glad to hear that. That makes
Yeah.
me happy.
Oh my gosh, it was so fantastic. So Drink Whey is coming out, in the next few months.
Yeah, yeah, so
And tell
that's
like,
where we're at.
it's just a protein
12
sparkling
grams of
water.
sparkling water with 12 grams of protein, 2 grams of sugar, sweetened with monk fruit and stevia, but very, like, light. You can't taste it 'cause I know a lot of people have, like, an aversion to stevia. I personally don't, but some people hate it. I would encourage you to give it a try. It's very subtle. We're using organic natural flavors. It's gonna be in a can, a tall can, like a tall 12-ounce can, and I'm hoping to have news soon on, like, where you can find it first, but I'll probably start selling it online and then hopefully partner with, like, a few key retailers, so that's
Oh
the
my
goal.
gosh, I'm so excited for you. That's so cool. You guys drink Whey with WAAY, is that correct?
Yes.
Drink
Got
Whey,
it,
and you
yeah.
can already follow it online. We'll tag when the podcast comes out, we'll be sure to tag this, and we'll tag you as well. Besides just bringing the Drink Whey to the market, like, anything else going on in the near future?
I mean, just, like, wrangling toddlers. My kids are 2, 4, and 6, so that's, like, the big thing
Oh
for
my
me these
gosh.
days. Yeah.
You're launching a company and 3 under the age of 6.
7, yeah. 4 under 41 if you count my husband, so
I love it. Awesome. Well, it was
yeah.
so great to talk to you. Thank you guys for being here. So Drink Whey and then obviously following it's just Morgan Zanotti?
Yeah, Morgan Zanotti, Zanotti, yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much
well,
for
thank
doing
you
this.
so much. This was so fun.
I appreciate it, you guys. Be sure to go follow her, and I will be drinking those like Mach 10 because I will promise you I probably drink 4 or 5 sparkling waters a day. It's disgusting
I
how
love
much
it.
water I drink.
We're on it.
Thank you guys so much. Be sure to share this one.